sorry you keep losing us there, Facebook. Please share this video because we are outside BlackRock with Scientists for XR. This is unequivocal, action-based activity against some of the worst organisations in the world. Please share this.
We're committed to stay within that, but since that agreement, mic check! Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! So even though we've committed to this, the government are paying lip service to them.
Rupert, there's a loudspeaker on that side. Could be worth trying to get if anybody has time.
Apparently I'm doing great.
There's a loudspeaker. Outside BlackRock, one of the biggest 3 investors in fossil fuels from around the... Yeah, how are you doing? Good to see you. Casey, got a loudspeaker. This is Scientists for XO, acting lyrical outside of BlackRock, one of the biggest and most important investors in deforestation and fossil fuel extraction in the world.
We're here in the banking district. Because the banking district are continuing to invest.
We've never done this before. Let's go!
The banking district are continuing to invest billions of pounds in fossil fuel investments and subsidies overseas since the Paris Agreement. Since the agreement where we committed to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, because we have to stay below 1.5 degrees warming. But since then, we have continued to invest more and more money in fossil fuels, particularly through the finance sector in the city, through the banking district, which is where we are now, and particularly 3 of the biggest investors, which include BlackRock, which are here behind us. They are investing £300 billion currently between the 3 top investors. This is money that you have put into these banks. Your savings, your pension, the money you're putting aside for your children to go to university. It is going into funding fossil fuels, which is effectively going to murder our children in the future.
So interesting watching people around who don't know what we're doing here.
To make sure that you know that the government are not listening to us, the banks are not listening to us. They're continuing to invest your money in things that are going to bring chaos and catastrophe to these very streets. We're being asked to move a bit forward by the friendly policeman here, Sergeant Ives. Thank you, Sergeant Ives.
Just for safety for the door,
just for safety for the door.
You are actually in breach of section 14 of the Public Order Act. You've been given to allow the protest.
Rebellion! Rebellion! Do you want to move? You want to stay? Wait, they want to... Wait, excuse me, sir. They're happy to stay. As you wish.
I'd like to also tell you something else about these big banking corporations, is that it's been revealed that they have refused 80% of the motions in their meetings to address the fossil fuel company investments that they are making. 80% of the motions to actually look again at the climate disaster and to try to mitigate against it. They are actively working to create a system that is going to cause the murder of thousands, if not millions, of people, our children, our grandchildren. We rely on 50% of our food from overseas. 70 to 80% of our fruit and vegetable is imported from overseas. When crops start to fail because of extreme climate-related disasters, which are happening more and more and are increased at least 100-fold due to climate change.
70% of our food is imported.
These terrible, extreme weather situations are already causing billions of pounds worth of damage across the globe, and they will continue to cause more and more, but most importantly, the crops will fail. That means there won't be enough food. That means we won't get enough food on our supermarket shelves. Every day already in this country, 80 heat waves, these floods, these extreme weather situations are going to get more and more frequent. Just 1 degree of warming, which is where we're at now, is enough to cause more evaporation of water off the ocean. That causes more water vapor in the sky. That water vapor condenses to form clouds and it falls as rain. That's why we're getting more floods and more storms. Global warming is also disrupting the jet stream. The weather system, the stream that allows our weather system to act the way it should do. Because it's being disrupted because warming in the atmosphere doesn't form equally over the planet. You've probably heard people say, oh, but it's colder where I live. Oh, it can't really be true. That's because some parts of the planet are warming more than others. The Arctic, the worst place of all to be warming, is warming at twice the rate of the rest of the world. That disrupts the jet stream, which relies on the temperature difference between the equator and the poles. This disruption means that we get messing up of our weather system, to put it in a very non-scientific way. That's why we're getting floods. One day a flood, one day a heat wave, one day loads of wind, one day loads of rain. It's going to get worse and worse. And it's already happening in countries abroad, overseas, which is causing mass loss of life. That increase in temperature in the atmosphere is also causing carbon dioxide to dissolve into the ocean, causing an increase in acidity, killing creatures in our ocean that the rest of the sea creatures depend on. If they die, ultimately we die. That's how food systems work, that's how food chains work, that's how ecosystems work. We balance, we all depend on each other. This 1.1 degree of warming also causes the oceans to expand. Simple physics, they expand, they take up more space. That, coupled with the fact that we are losing ice from the Antarctic ice sheet, the ice cap in the Arctic, in the North Pole, and in the glacial regions. We've been losing so much ice that if you average it together over the
Extinction
last
Rebellion
40
outside
years,
of Blackrock,
the
where
equivalent
scientists have
of us
occupied the
losing
space.
300
Blackrock, one of the
double-deckers
top
worth of ice,
3 biggest
double-decker
investment
buses
fund
worth of
management
ice,
organisations in the world.
300 double-decker buses worth of
Trillions
ice
in fossil fuel extraction
every
continues to persecute humanity as a result of never-ending expansion into more and more profits.
Over the last 40 years, if we average it together, a great science communicator in Exeter called Tim King did a calculation, and he worked out that if we add it all together, the equivalent to the ice we've been losing is the equivalent to losing 300 double-decker buses worth of ice every second.
No!
Not only that, but this
Over the last
warming
40 years, 300
causes
double-deckers.
so many other impacts on our ecosystems. The extreme weather causes areas of land to get flooded, to get eroded, and that, coupled with land use by humans, is causing degradation of our soil. 95% of what we eat relies on our soil. We need healthy topsoil to produce food that we eat that comes to our supermarkets. We have lost 50%
Piece of the
of the
please share this
topsoil
video. This
across
is
the planet.
imperative
It takes
scientific
150
information
years to
from
make just 2.5 centimeters more of it.
scientists for Extinction
And the
Rebellion.
worst thing of all is that usually to make more of it, we need earthworms. Can we support our arrestees here?
Yes, guys! We love you!
They're not being arrested, great! We support them! Glad they're not being arrested.
Getting comfortable outside of Blackrock because of their evil investments
Extinction!
in deforestation, fossil fuel extraction. This company favours profits over people and planet. It chooses the prosperity of the elite, of a tiny proportion of the elite for
Sure. Rupert, come and talk to us.
over the safety of your family, of my family, of the people in the world who cannot withstand these worsening weather impacts.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Emily's been
Exactly,
saying, to draw attention to these fine people down here. Immediately on my left, this is Charlie Gardner. Dr. Charlie Gardner.
Yes, Charlie!
As some of you may know, wrote an article recently with Claire Wordley in The Guardian, explaining why scientists now, it's no longer enough for scientists to just write the truth. Scientists have to put themselves on the line and say, look, we're terrified. We're absolutely scared. we're going further. We're going to be taking direct action. I come to myself the same conclusion myself as an environmental philosopher some time ago. It's really, really inspiring to see these scientists for Extinction Rebellion standing up and taking responsibility. I really, really hope that their action inspires many others. And Emily has now joined them on the floor, and a couple of others. Is that Sven? Yeah. Sven? Josh, sorry. And
very sensible.
Right, so they're trying to block the entrance to Black Rock because, well, they're destroying the Amazon, they're destroying the future. And these are scientists taking responsibility. Emily wants a quick word.
I wanted to say that we've spoken, well, you've heard a lot, you've probably read a lot about the climate crisis and about fossil fuel emissions that are being funded by all the big banks, most of the big banks in the city, and what a travesty and what a crime this is, and what a criminal negligence that they're murdering our children and our grandchildren to do this. But what I haven't mentioned so far is the biodiversity crisis, the ecological crisis that is intrinsically linked to fossil fuel gas emissions. Because of these fossil fuels emitting carbon dioxide and the global warming, because of the freak weather incidences, like I said, we're losing our soil, but as a result, we're also losing ecosystems. Ecologists have now clarified that over the next few decades, 1 million species on this planet are at risk of extinction. 1 million, not even at risk, they will be going extinct in the next few decades unless we do something right now. Scientists have said that we have entered the 6th mass extinction event on planet Earth. The 6th mass extinction event, categorized by unprecedented loss of life of species. This country in the UK is doing pretty much worse than most other countries. We might think, oh, we're not the Amazon, we're not burning everything. Actually, it's not true. A report found only 3 or 4 years ago that 1 in 5 British mammals are now at risk of extinction. The same report came out just this month saying it's now 1 in 4 British mammals. That's how fast things are moving. The most important creatures that we're losing, particularly in this country, are our insects. The bee has now been issued as probably the most important species on this planet. And the bee is now at risk of extinction. It's important because it pollinates our crops, it pollinates our plants. Without them, the plants can't reproduce, they can't grow. If we don't have plants, we can't have agriculture. If we don't have agriculture, we can't feed humans and other creatures. We are at risk of losing way more than just the bees. We're also losing our earthworms, who are responsible for helping churn up the soil to re-energize, re-fertilize soil that's being degraded. As you heard earlier, I said that we're losing huge amounts of soil and the earthworms simply can't replace it because 80% of them have gone as well. We are losing creatures all over the world. Particular interest to me when I was researching this was that we're losing forest elephants. Now that might not seem particularly significant other than the fact that they're amazing creatures, but forest elephants are called forest gardeners. They're responsible for trimming back the smaller trees in big forests, leaving behind the big trees to grow better. These big trees trap, sequester, catch hold of so much of the carbon reserves on our planet. If those big trees are not being helped to grow by the elephants, they will not survive in such big numbers. They will release their carbon stores back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, further exacerbating greatly the effects of global warming. There are many other things that are happening right now that are impacting and feeding back on and increasing what's called feedback loops to make global warming worse and worse and worse. There are fires raging in the Arctic, which are burning through peat stores, which are releasing more greenhouse gases. There's what's called tipping points. There's permafrost, which is melting, thawing, and releasing more greenhouse gases. We've also got the albedo effect, which is how when the ice melts, that reflects less of the heat from the sun back out to space, leaving behind exposed dark water, which absorbs more heat from the sun and causes even more warming. The thing is, scientists do not know when these tipping backs are going to lock us in to catastrophic warming. It could be tomorrow. It could be next year. It could be in 10 years. But why wait? Because positive feedback loops, that could go to 20 metres, 70 metres. That's higher than probably this building. Imagine what that's going to do to millions of people living near the coast. Imagine what that's going to do to us, who are then in a global civilization where we have millions of climate refugees, millions of people without homes, millions of people without shelter. We lose a lot of our arable land, our agriculture land that's producing the crops. This is going to impact us. Right now it's impacting the poor of this world, the less developed countries, far more than us. But what impacts those countries will have a knock-on effect very, very soon here in London, where we are sheltered from most of the devastation of what's going on. But that will change. The Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, said that by the time we reach financial instability in this country, which he said is coming unless we take urgent action, he said by the time we reach financial instability and people start to realise, such as the bank here, it will be too late. We will be locked in.
Thanks, Evan, well said. There's some scientific detail for you to use as talking points, rebels. I want to speak for a second to the people of Black Rock.
Woo!
So, we are here today to protest and rebel against what Black Rock is doing and what it's the toxic system that it's a part of. I want to make very clear that we are not here because we don't like you. We're not here to make points against you as individual human beings. In fact, we know that many of you already know a lot of what we're saying, and that many people who work in places like Black Rock are not easy in their consciences about it or are concerned about the potential effects of it. Extinction Rebellion is a broad-based movement. We are a non-violent movement, and we do not name and shame and blame. This is about all of us. This is about all of us being in this together. So I'd like to say to the staff of Black Rock, we hope that you are willing to open your hearts and your ears to us as we are willing to enter into dialogue with you. And we hope that you understand that we're doing this for the bees, and we're doing this for the polar bears, and we're doing this for ourselves, and we're doing this for our children, and we're doing this for your children, and we're doing this for you. And we know that many of you know that, but I just wanted to make that clear because I think it's a really important part of our message and the distinctive approach to that.
Yes, we've bet.
So we are a nubbing movement, a non-violent movement, a broad-based movement. We're here for everybody. We're here for the police too, of course. We're here for the police's children too. We know that many of the police are not 100% happy to be having to spend their time doing this as they've been ordered to do. We know that many of the police are very concerned about the future because, police have children too and have nephews and nieces too and so on and so forth. We're here for everybody. We're a non-violent movement. We're trying to take as many people as we can with us and eventually everybody, because it's going to need everybody if we're going to turn this around. We are Extinction Rebellion. It's all of our futures together, including the people working here inside this building. Yeah?
Woo! Yes, we bet. Come on, scientists, tell us what you know.
Good afternoon. My name is Sven. I'm a former guest lecturer at the United Nations Mandated University for Peace, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit about why us scholars, why us researchers are actually out here on the road.
Okay.
It doesn't happen often that scientists leave their comfort zone and their ivory towers. For many of us, this is the first time that we've been doing anything like this, because we like to stay usually in our calm rooms of science, in our ivory towers, talking through journals, talking in a language that is maybe a little bit exclusive. And that's why we decided that we...
Is that okay?
And that's why we decided,
Sven?
as researchers, we have decided to come outside on the road and to amplify our messages of science and make it accessible to the public. Since before we have only been talking to ourselves in journals and in scientific rooms.
And get it shared out. Yeah, if you're watching this, please, we've got more viewers coming in all the time. Share this video out. We've got cable. Share this video out.
Such a drastic step. However, every time when scientists
Been
have
streaming
done that,
for
it was
20
usually
minutes.
a time of needed social change. Unfortunately, we have constructed a mythicized image of our heroes of peace and have forgotten what those
down on the
legends
bottom
of
when you're
peace,
watching
like
it.
Dr. Martin Luther King, like Mahatma Gandhi, like Nelson Mandela, actually did in order
shit.
to get their voices heard, because they also had to blockade roads. We see, for example, that many of the social movements that have emerged over the course of 100 years, scientists played a
Pretty
major
much. I was
role
around
in
the
this.
front, around the
We
back,
had to
or the front for a
pitch
little bit.
in our roles
So I've been
as
here for 20
scientists.
minutes.
If we consider the impact that Mahatma Gandhi
didn't
had
see you guys
by
arrive,
calling on
unfortunately.
the refusal
No, I was
to
around the
pay
other side.
assault tax, which is a non-violent form of direct action, then we see that he actually led 100,000 people being imprisoned. This is Gandhi.
100,000 people? Wow. Speaking to non-violent direct action.
In order to march and blockade Washington, D.C. It does not often happen that we have to do this. Unfortunately, this is one of those times. All of you are scientists. You have working eyes. You can feel, sense climate change happening every day, and therefore you yourself are scientists and amplification devices of science. In this sense, we are very happy to have your support and to have you spread the message of ecological devastation, which at the moment is happening scientifically.
Yes, then!
Extinction Rebellion! Extinction
Rebellion!
Extinction Rebellion! Extinction Rebellion!
Wow, so the scientists are visibly excited and happy to be sharing this imperative information. I've got 3 scientists blocking the entrance. This entrance has been closed up.
For people who've just joined us, we are scientists for Extinction Rebellion. If you're filming, taking photographs, wonderful. Get it out on social media. We have a Facebook page, Scientists for Extinction Rebellion, an outward-facing Facebook page, not our group, which is for the scientists ourselves. Post on there, post your comments, post your videos, post your photos.
Share
We
this
also have a
information.
Twitter account, @ScientistsX. @ScientistsX. If you're filming or photographing or you're wanting to write down the things that we said, please do. We want to get this out there. Please copy us in. I'm Dr. Emily Grossman. You can also tag me in on Twitter @DrEmilyGrossman or on Facebook, Emily Grossman. You can tag in any of us here. We've got Dr. Charlie Gardner. I'd like to actually introduce you to some of the other scientists we have here today. My background is I have a PhD in molecular biology. I now work as a science broadcaster, an author, an educator, and a public speaker. My job is to communicate the science to the public. I got aligned with Extinction Rebellion last April when I came to a protest, and I had no idea the extent of the urgency and of the devastation that's been taking place on our planet because of climate change and because of the ecological disaster. I started to research the facts. I started to work alongside climate scientists. For the last 6 months I've been investigating climate change and biodiversity loss. I'm working with some of the amazing scientists you see here and some of the hundreds, 600 in total across the globe who are in support of what we're doing here today. And since then I barely had a good night's sleep. I have been up at night thinking, why are we not being told? Why is action not being taken? Why are we being lied to? Why are the governments and the banks making the situation worse when we're already working towards disaster? So I've committed the last 6 months of my life to trying to find out about the science, to get it clear, and then to be able to communicate it to you, to the public, to make our voices heard as a representative of all of the other scientists in this group. We have an amazing group of scientists. Quite a few of us are representing the group here today. I'd like to introduce you to some of the other scientists. Now, you probably know it is a bit of a stereotype, and I probably dispel that stereotype, which is what I do in my work. But scientists notoriously are quite a shy group of people. We're used to being in our laboratories, we're used to analysing data, we're used to figuring stuff out, thinking thinking and using our brains. I personally love that. It's what I love doing in life. It's what I love doing in the world. There are very few scientists who want to hold a megaphone. There are very few scientists who want to sit outside a bank, in front of police, in the street. But we are forced to take action. And I'd like, even if it's really excruciating for you, I'm sorry, scientists here, please can you just give us one sentence as to who you are, what you do and why you're here? Even some of the more shy ones. Scott, can I come to you? You want to go after? Great, thank you. Who can I speak to? Charlie, introduce yourself again for those who don't remember.
I'm Dr. Charlie Gardner and I'm a wildlife conservationist. I've spent my entire professional career doing what I can to prevent the destruction of the natural world. And myself and my colleagues, the wildlife conservation community, we have been communicating for decades to our leaders, to our governments, to our decision makers about the crises we face. And they have completely ignored us. I've done everything I can in my professional career to try and halt the destruction of nature. And I've done everything I can in my personal life to try and slow down the destruction of nature. And I would rather be doing that. But I'm here as a last throw of the dice. As a professional, this is the one thing that I feel has a chance of catalyzing the changes that we need. So I'm leaving aside my science and concentrating on activism. And although Emily was right that scientists are much more comfortable in the lab and are not comfortable putting themselves in front of police, I would like to say that there is nowhere else in the world I would rather be than with you right now.
Yes, Charlie! Scientists speaking out, lots of emotion.
And just to add, that there is, as a conservationist, I have never, ever had any hope for the future of our planet until now. The one thing that gives conservationists hope is Extinction Rebellion. Extinction!
Rebellion!
Extinction!
Rebellion!
Extinction!
Rebellion!
Extinction!
Rebellion! Nothing on BBC that is absolutely criminal, calling on the press to tell the truth, like these scientists are.
Hello? I'm Josh, I'm a research associate, I'm a physicist. I'm here, well, there's only so far you can get with science and facts. For 40 years, scientists have been sounding the alarms. Yeah? For 40 years, scientists have been sounding the alarms around the coming crisis, and nothing's happened. Only symbolic actions have been taken. If anything, the problem's gotten worse. Banks, fossil fuel companies have continued to invest. Barely, yeah. Is it better? Up with it. Okay. Almost kissing it now. So for 40 years, we've known about this problem. Only in the last maybe year, groups like Extinction Rebellion have started to build the movement that we need to actually address this crisis. And I was inspired to put my money where my mouth is and actually join Extinction Rebellion, actually address this crisis. I'm here because I'm scared. I'm scared.
Can you hear me? Excellent. So I'm really pleased to be sitting here next to these wonderful scientists, these people who are finding the facts. But let's just remember why we're exactly here, outside Black Rock. So, the very famous 350.org man, Bill McGibbon, said that if Black Rock simply decided to exclude fossil fuel stocks from its main funds, it would send a message to other financial institutions like no other. Remember, this is a corporation, an investment corporation that is investing in the destruction of the Amazon rainforest for soy, for beef. It also is the biggest investor in the world in coal and in fossil fuels. And they are trying to pretend that this isn't happening, and then it's not their responsibility. So we're asking for people inside this building to take responsibility, as we are trying to do in our own wonderful and unique way at Extinction Rebellion. So we're asking that they really think about whether what they're doing is justified, if it means the destruction of the natural world and possibly the human species itself. You know, we really need them to ask them to think about what they're doing and why they're doing it, and whether profit at any price, if it means the destruction of the entire planet, is really worth it. So I come here and I'm really pleased to be supporting these lovely scientists who find out such wonderful things for us to know, who are so dedicated. I'm here as a conscientious protector and as a Buddhist, because I cannot do metta practice, which is well-wishing for all living beings, all sentient beings, above, below, to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west, whether they fly, whether they swim. How can I do that practice and just sit by and do nothing? I'm nothing more than a hypocrite. So these wonderful scientists are giving us the facts. They're finding out the unique habitats of creatures that we don't even know about. So I'm really delighted to be sitting next to these wonderful scientists here today.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, cool. My name is Leo. I'm a mechanical engineer. Not a proper scientist. When I was a kid at school, I remember learning about climate change. And my teacher said to me, it's going to be your generation's job to fix this. So I went to university, and I learned how to be an engineer. And I tried to make things more efficient. But every time you make something more efficient, they just make more of it. They keep on making more. They're building more fossil fuel extraction devices. They're building more aeroplanes. It doesn't matter, if you keep on growing exponentially, efficiency changes don't work. I had something better to say. After the April protests, I remember someone talking to me about the school strikes. And he said to me, isn't it great? That generation's going to fix this problem. And I had a bit of a panic attack, because that's what someone had said to me 15 years earlier. This is not the children's problem to fix. This is our generation's problems to fix, or they will be the last generation. I love you, everyone.
He's sort of softly smiling in the back in some instances.
Hello. My name is Dr. Rachel Lunnan. I have a PhD in mathematical logic. I see this in black and white, and I am so scared for what lies ahead of us.
And we've now closed down this side also. There is great difficulty for there.
I spent many years as a computer programmer. I like to have big problems that can take years to solve, to work on. In April, I gave up my job, and now I am an environmental activist. I have spent the last week moving around London, being chased by the police, not knowing where I'm going to sleep at night. But I know that I'm going to keep on doing this because there is nothing more important that we can do.
Hello. Can you hear me okay? Specifically, I work using and developing and trying to improve the climate models that are used to make these predictions of how climate is going to change in the future and how that depends on the composition of the atmosphere. And it's not an easy job, but I try and do my best. Now, I'm going to say a few words here. I kind of feel like what I'm trying to bring to this is just trying to show how serious science is and how much we really do need to spread that knowledge and that understanding if we're going to try and find solutions to this problem. And with that, I would like to show you what our banner here means. And these aren't just pretty colours, going from blue over to red here. Can anyone have an idea of what they think this might mean?
It's a timeline.
Temperature change.
Bit further, here?
1980.
1950, around here. Anyone else want to have a guess? You're close, you're close. Anyone else? Well, it's actually not on this graph, because it was discovered in 1848. So we have known that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas since the middle of the 19th century. The award for that generally goes to Geoffrey Tyndall, who was a chemist in the 19th century, although technically it was actually discovered by a woman called Eunice Newton-Foote around 2 years beforehand. We didn't discover that until later, and she kind of got forgotten from the record. But the credit actually does go to her. But Geoffrey Tyndall, he was the one who did a lot of the research, and he had the funding of the Royal Society behind her to do that. Now, admittedly, back then it was just a theory, and it took quite a long time for people to realise that, like, okay, CO2 is a greenhouse gas, but how much are we adding to it, to the atmosphere? How much warming that might create? The first predictions of how much warmer it might get were made at the end of the 19th century by Arrhenius, and he predicted in 1898 that a doubling of CO2 would cause around 4 degrees of warming. And actually that's not far off from what our predictions are now. We still believe that doubling of CO2 will probably cause between around 2 and 4 degrees of warming, with average around 3 degrees. So really, we have known about this issue for a long time. It took until the 1950s for us to be able to prove that CO2 emissions were rising exponentially in the atmosphere. That was done by Keeling from long-term measurements. By the 70s and 80s, it was generally scientific consensus that this was a big issue and we were going to have to deal with it. And so it became, when we say that scientists have been saying this for the last 30 years, that really comes down to Professor James Hansen and other scientists coming out into the Supreme Court saying in 1988 that we need to deal with this issue or it is going to define our future. That's here. Since then, CO2 emissions have increased by 60%. Beforehand, we can say, quite legitimately, that by going through the Industrial Revolution, that we are trying
to bring up humanity. We're trying to get access to better energy sources. Since then, we have known what the impacts are, and that has been well communicated to governments and the general public. And yet they have still increased by 60%. We are now at a point where even establishment figures such as Ban Ki-moon and Mark Carney, like Emily said earlier, are saying that we do need to have rapid action to reduce CO2 emissions. And unfortunately, it is not happening. Like I said, the Paris Agreement was in 2016. In 2017, CO2 emissions increased by nearly 2%. Last year in 2018, CO2 emissions increased by 2.8%, and it looks like they're going to increase again this year. So all that really matters when it comes down to this is how much are CO2 emissions going up and how can we bring them down. In terms of why I'm here, I feel like I work in a field which is focused on trying to improve our predictions of climate change. I work on developing models which can handle the chemical processes that go on in the atmosphere, how that affects aerosol particles, how that feeds back on clouds, and how those in turn affect our uncertainty in making predictions. And it's very interesting work. It can keep me very tied up for long periods of time. It's very interesting, but really I feel like the difference in uncertainty within the field is just at this point between bad or catastrophic. We
love you.
Sorry, I'm completely improvising this. I feel like we how much what might happen in the future, but at the end of the day there's this zeroth order problem that we are not dealing with, and that is carbon dioxide emissions. And if we don't deal with that issue, the only options that we have are bad options. They may be slightly less bad, or they may be really, really catastrophically awful. But if we don't deal with that, I don't really see the point in doing the kind of research that I'm doing. And that is why I'm here today.
Thank you, Dr. Scott Archer-Nichols, climate scientist, who's told me himself that one of the things he hates most is speaking in front of people. So can you give him a big round of applause? Standing in front of people, to be speaking in front of an audience, to be making their voices heard, especially those who are not used to doing this kind of thing, which most people aren't. Can you imagine what it would be like, you yourself in your daily life, if you felt that strongly about something that was so important to you, that you actually felt that you needed to overcome one of your own biggest fears in order to speak out about it, because it's that serious.
Let me just see that.
So before we lose this megaphone, we need direct action against government inaction over the climate and ecological emergency. This declaration has been signed by over 600 professors, doctorates, postgraduates, MSc researchers in the fields directly related to the climate and ecological emergency across the globe. The signatures are going up by 100 each day at the moment, as people hear about our declaration, which we only announced officially on Saturday. As people hear about that, it still hasn't been published because we want to get to over 1,000 signatures, which we think will happen very soon. But this declaration sets out the thoughts and feelings of climate scientists and ecological scientists across the globe. As scientists, We have dedicated our lives to the study and understanding of our world and our place in it. We declare that scientific evidence shows beyond all reasonable doubt that human caused changes to our earth, changes to our land, our sea and our air are severely threatening the habitability of our planet. We further declare that overwhelming evidence shows that if global greenhouse gas emissions are not brought rapidly down to zero, if biodiversity loss is not halted, we risk damage to our planetary life support systems that is catastrophic and irreversible, causing incalculable human suffering and many deaths. We note that despite the scientific community first sounding the alarm on human-caused global warming more than 4 decades ago, no action taken by governments so far has been sufficient. Global greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise steeply. Biodiversity loss continues at an ever-increasing rate. We now call for immediate and decisive action by governments worldwide. We call for governments to halt greenhouse gas emissions. We call for governments to take action to prevent further biodiversity loss. And we call for governments to restore, to the fullest extent possible, the damage that has already been done. We urge governments to provide particular support to those who will be most affected by climate change and by the transition to a sustainable economy. As scientists, we have an obligation beyond merely describing and understanding the natural world. We must now take an active part in helping to protect it. We note that the scientific community has already tried all conventional methods to draw attention to the crisis, and we believe that the continued governmental inaction over the climate and ecological crisis constitutes a crime against humanity. We believe that this crime now justifies non-violent direct action, which goes beyond the bounds of the law. We are therefore actively supporting those who are rising up peacefully against governments that are failing to act proportionately to the scale of the crisis. We believe it is our moral duty to act now, and we urge you and other scientists to join us to protect humanity's only home.
There's the Declaration of Scientists for XR.
Extinction!
Rebellion!
Extinction! Extinction! Extinction!
Okay, I'm not going to talk about this morning because in January this year, after 30 years in the City of London, I decided to give up my job for climate change. Now, Boris Johnson can say we're all crusties, we're all hippies, but it's a lie. The press will basically say we need to go and get a job. It's a lie. I had a job for 30 years. I never worked in BlackRock, but I worked for HSBC and Lloyds Bank, and last year I was working for Nest, a pension company that teaches young people to save for the next 30 or 40 years. So I've got 2 kids, 19 and 24 years old. And it's a good idea to provide for your future, to save for your retirement. But if ultimately what the pension industry is about is teaching 19, 20, 25, 30-year-old kids to put money into the stock market that is essentially going to go worthless it's almost fraudulent, right? The other thing I did in banking was to work in risk. There's no way as a trader, I used to be a trader in the City of London, there's no way that I would have been allowed to take risks in my job that would have bankrupted the bank. And yet I look at what's happening with the climate emergency, and I basically say to myself, why is our government taking risks with the futures of our children and our grandchildren? Where is the precautionary principle here? They wouldn't do it in the City of London. Why are they doing it in Westminster? So I recognise my privilege, right? I recognise the fact that I can give my job up. Not everybody can do that. I don't have to worry about a roof over my head or food on the table. I use that privilege to get arrested on the streets of London. We are normal people. So Boris Johnson, we're normal people. We just care about the futures of our children and our grandchildren. I'm sorry, I've spoken too much. I'm going to get emotional. I'm wearing my pink shirt. I appeal to everyone in BlackRock. Stop funding fossil fuel.
Please share this video far and wide because the messages from the doctors prior, messages from this recent banker have been poignant. So please share this far and wide in your networks because it is no longer the crusty hippies who are taking the stage. This is informed, educated, academic individuals calling out for action.
Extinction!
Rebellion!
Extinction! Rebellion! We're going to tell BlackRock, what are we going to tell them? That they must divest in fossil fuels. What are we going to tell them?
Divest!
Before everyone goes, I just wanted to add one word about why the hell this is going on. George Osborne, as many people might know, takes hundreds of thousands of pounds. I think he's paid £13,000 a day by BlackRock as a consultant. Now, this isn't about him personally. This is about the revolving door that goes on in this country and across the world, where people who are meant to be making laws that protect our children in the future are in fact walking straight into jobs where they get paid millions to keep the system going. We've had 25 years of climate agreements where governments get together and make these sincere sounding promises, and none of it has made a blind bit of difference, because what happens in the City of London and in Wall Street and in Singapore is completely unaffected by those agreements. And the point of this movement is actually to turn that rhetoric into reality that can have an effect on how trillions of dollars are actually spent in the world, destroying the oceans, destroying the soils, destroying the ecosystems. And that is why direct action has to happen. Because otherwise those words that they say every year when they meet up don't mean anything at all. It is the revolving door. It's what, in terms of other countries, when we think about brown paper bags with money under the counter, we call corruption. It's just here we have totally licensed corruption. It's all on the table. You look at the MP's register of interests. Loads of them, while being your MP and supposedly representing you, are also directors of huge companies, and in many cases they are passing laws that benefit those very companies and their own salaries and directorships. I mean, it's a slightly different issue, but about 200 MPs, if not more, including the House of Lords, have personal financial stakes in private healthcare, and they are passing laws to privatise the healthcare system. We have a system of rank corruption, and we need to tell each other about that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir!
Extinction!
Rebellion!
Extinction!
Rebellion!
Extinction!
Rebellion!
This
is scientist.
Mic check! Mic check!
Mic check! Mic check! The science has spoken. The earth would be broken. All rise up! All rise up! Olay, 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 mama. The science has spoken. So if you're joining us, Yes, this is Extinction Rebellion on the 8th day of climate action. 1,300 activists have been arrested around London. We've got scientists outside of BlackRock, one of the top 3 investment fund managers in London that has billions invested in fossil fuels and in deforestation, and is losing, I think they've got 6.5 trillion in fossil fuels, in deforestation. It is as big as the 3rd economic power in the world. This building here, this business, and it is funneling all of its investment profiles into the degradation of this planet and creating an unlivable future for our future generations, as well as subjugating nations of the world to the first and foremost worst impacts of the encroaching weather conditions and climate changes. Our scientists here have blockaded the entrance to BlackRock for the past few hours. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds block the intersection, blocking the intersection around Bank where 7 roads meet in the financial district, to say enough is enough. We will no longer allow our press, our finances, our governments to remain in complicit behaviour against the protection of the planet, and we will no longer allow them to degrade our resources and subject species to death. We have seen half of the species on this planet lost. We have lost 80% of pollinators, half of the rainforests. We just heard that the equivalent of 30 buses worth of ice is being lost every second. The scientists have spoken. This is a sign that represents 1850, when we found out about the climate changing impacts of carbon dioxide, all the way through here to 2006, I believe, when we have anthropogenically impacted on our climate.
Can I tell you our plan?
Yes, of course.
So we're planning to...
We are with the scientists for XR today. 2 weeks ago I was with the doctors for XR who stuck themselves to the Department for Business, Industry, Strategy and Energy to protest the government's inactivity on climate change. The scientists here are against some of the biggest investment funds who continue to degrade our resources and our beautiful planet. Sorry for the movement, we're just packing up ready to move on to the next action. I'll take you with us because it is non-stop here in London today. This is day 8 of the International Rebellion. We have joined 60 countries in the biggest climate mobilisation that the world has ever seen. So if you're watching this, thank you so much for the support. Join us on the streets, share this message far and wide, because the information from the scientists for XR this morning was poignant. Follow the doctors. In a world of exploitative, never-ending economic growth, serving the profiles of the elite, the few, about everything with regards to ice caps melting, atmosphere, the investments of these nefarious organisations, the BlackRock, the Vanguard, the State Street, the ones that hold our pension funds and ironically are funding pensions for the future whilst using these nefarious investments to fund deforestation and fossil fuel extraction, which is holding us in this frightening downward spiral of environmental degradation, facing an ecological and climate crisis for our pension funds, 6.5 trillion, millions and millions and millions of people who are relying on these institutions, these financial outfits to protect their future, and instead, what are these companies doing? They are investing in fossil fuels, in these flimsy, flaky industries that will ultimately spell doom and disaster for all of humanity. Global elites, money. Scientists navigating their way back round to the other side of BlackRock. Now where are you off to? Disruptive behaviour. So this is scientists for Extinction Rebellion engaged in non-violent civil disobedience following in hundreds of years worth of scientific, social mobilisation process that we are following in the footsteps of Gandhi, of Martin Luther King, the suffragettes. We heard from the scientists earlier.